Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Shugufta Rafi and I'm a first year industrial organizational psychology master's student at University of New Haven. And today I'd like to speak about positive psychology and how we can implement measures from positive psychology into our lives. To begin with, I'd like to say that there has been many occasions in our life where we've been asked this question to describe a moment where we thought we were the most happiest. And our answers are always something along the lines of when we went to a friend's birthday party or when we attended someone's graduation ceremony where we really enjoyed or liked to be a part of. The problem in asking for a moment is you're trying to limit their capacity to that particular context. But what happens to the emotion after the context? Are they still able to transfer that from one situation to another, or does it become completely non-existent? The answer to this lies in the science of positive psychology. What it essentially stands for is not the popular belief which people have about positive psychology that is all just about being happy all the time. In fact, Mahai, who's a massively well-credentialed, well-respected pioneer in this area, has stated that in order for human beings to have a fulfilling experience, you cannot remove the bad part. It's almost impossible, and it's nonsensical to not to expect some failures. It is going to happen. It's a part and parcel of your life. So you trying to think that you cannot achieve that, it's leading you to a path which is much more detrimental for you. So what positive psychology does is it guides you to be much more resilient to deal with certain situations in our life which are considered not to be so fortunate. So now to begin with, let's talk about emotions. What do we think about emotions? We think about something that's related to mental processes or that's related to brain and nervous system, which is right for most of the part. But emotion, the word itself in Latin, stands for emotional energy. So what that essentially means is it's an energy which flows throughout your body. And as we all know, that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So it literally flows from one form to another. So when the energy is flowing in your body, it's completely neutral. It has absolutely no meaning attached to it. You human beings, depending on your sensation and your physiology, subscribe it whether or not it's supposed to be a positive emotion or negative emotion. Otherwise, it's completely neutral. Now, this framework was actually brought forward by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, where she very eloquently explains how emotions actually flow in our body. And this is the one. So it starts with circumstances, which are basically your situations, which we go through on a daily basis, and then it moves to appraisal stage. So what appraisal stage means is the interpretation of those circumstances which we go through, where we attribute whether or not it's supposed to be positive or negative. And then comes the changes. So what this region does is emotions have the capacity to socially broadcast itself to the rest of the world. So for instance, if you're sad, you look upset and gloomy and you look very dull. But if you're happy, you're joyous, you smile more, you laugh more, so it's apparent, it's out there, it's very clear. And people can tell which emotion you're going through depending on the changes in your body state. And then comes the response. So according to her, you can change this process with 3 different ways. The first one is either by changing how you respond, your bodily function, so you can choose not to. And the second one is, which is extremely crucial and very important, is the one where you do the interpretation of your circumstances as to whether or not it's supposed to be a pleasant one or unpleasant one. And then if you can change the whole circumstances itself. Now, when we think about emotions, why do we always think about it being something negative, about negative emotions, something that's dark, something that probably shouldn't be experienced? Let me give you an example. So for instance, if you buy a new car versus you get into a car accident, your reactions to these 2 events are going to be entirely different than one another. And the reason is, the first one is going to be something pleasant where you're happy, and the other one, ideally, would be something negative. But have you ever thought, does the negative emotion, which is associated to a car accident, does it actually add any value to our life? Absolutely not. It's not going to fundamentally change anything, or it's not going to have a significant impact onto my life. Even though the car accident took place, I cannot undo that. That's not, I'm not able to do anything about that. But still, I'm trying to attribute it with something negative and not positive. And the reason is because our brain is more likely to pick on negativity and rewire negative experiences in a much more quicker fashion than the positive experiences. The irony here is there is an asymmetry between positive experiences and negative experiences. So what that essentially means is when you wake up in the morning and if you practice gratitude, you will see that there are loads of experiences in your life which are much more pleasant, enjoyable, pleasurable, where you really like to be a part of. Whereas negative emotions are very rare, but still they scream, they're very loud, they're very out there, which is why our brain tries to pick on them. And when we think about negativity, the reason is why we think about it being something dark is when you experience positive emotions, there is a change in your brain chemistry where you're able to broaden your awareness, where you're able to see things much beyond than what you typically would. Whereas when you experience negative emotions, where you're gloomy and you're cynical of certain things in your life, you're not able to do that. Your vision becomes very clamped down, where you have a very streamlined view of what you're looking at. So for example, if you have to take a test, you wake up next day in the morning and you will completely forget about all the grateful things which are happening for you and you'll just focus on the test. This is the idea. You always tend to focus on the negative aspects of your life, completely disregarding what's the good aspect of your life, which is very much part of you as a human being. And this theory was brought forward by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, where she describes it as being a broaden and build theory. So what this means is you're trying to broaden your awareness in the moment by experiencing those positive emotions, and then you're building it over time. And by building, what that means is you're becoming much more resilient to that situation, so you're able to handle it in a much better manner than you would before. So when we think about broadening your awareness, this is not just a topic where we talk about things in the sense which is not tested. So many behavioral experiments try to test this area, and what they found was one of the studies was done by Anderson in the year 2009. So what they did was they tried to divide the participants into two different categories. One of them was primed with positive emotions, and the other one was primed with neutral. And the group, both of them were asked to view images of real estate as well as a photo which was in front of the real estate, and were asked to identify the gender. And what they found with brain imaging studies and eye tracking is when individuals are primed with positive emotions, they are much more likely to look at both the real estate as well as the image, whereas individuals who are primed with just neutral emotions were looking at the photo. And how they know this is because the region of the brain which gets activated when you look at the place and the region of the brain which gets activated when you look at the face, both of them were equally activated amongst individuals who are primed with positive emotions. As you guys can see in this picture, there's a real estate as well as the photo, and participants were primed with positive emotions were looking at both of them. Now, when we think about positive experiences, how you can gain this, how can you achieve this? It's out there in the world, it's very much apparent, and we know this. But the reason why we are not able to achieve that authentic happiness is because you are not being mindful. You are just being in the moment. You're just missing the ability for you to be present and experience things as they are. And the number one reason for this is social media. So the world of instant gratification, where you go to a place and the first thing you would do is you would like to take a picture of that and put it up on your social media, and you're trying to wait for the likes and the comments to actually experience that emotion. And you're depriving your body to go through that, depending on what's happening in outside world. And anything that's outside of you is completely, it's varying, and what's inside of you is constant. So you need to make your decisions based on what's inside rather than what's outside. And the second one is where you're trying to actually achieve the authentic happiness by trying to imitate someone else's path of success. So what brings them joy and happiness might not be the same for me. If I enjoy dance classes, it might not apply to every single person out there. And you need to identify and explore and discover and see as to what you really like and what's your passion, what's your calling. That's when you will be able to truly achieve the authentic happiness. And the third one is by practicing mindfulness-based exercises where you try to focus on your breath. So breath is the only thing which is connected to life. So if you're not breathing, then you die. So once you focus on your breath, that connects to your thoughts, and your thoughts in turn dictates your behavior. And that's how you move in the world today, where you practice mindfulness-based exercises, where you're focusing on your breath, so you're mindful, you can take in those positive emotions, and then you can propel on the path of growth and success, where you're being much more resilient and in the moment. And this is the message of positive psychology. Thank you so much.